All right, Mike. So thanks for coming on the podcast on what is out here at least a yucky Friday. We got in New Jersey. We may get snow.
Oh, you know what? My daughter is about to give birth. She is eminently
Okay.
giving birth, and she wrote me
Congratulations.
today. Thank you. She wrote me today and said today would be a great day to give birth because we are not only in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. It's May and it's snowing out.
Yeah. She live in New Jersey. She lives in New Jersey, upstate New York, or
She lives in Michigan actually with
oh
me
wow,
and not with me, but in Michigan also. And
right,
it's snowing here in Michigan.
nice.
It's crazy.
You look a little young to have a daughter who's having children.
You are fantastic for saying. Thank you. I think
your
I look
best
too
friend
young
now.
too, but sometimes I worry that we all look in the mirror and we see something different than what the rest of the world
Oh, we
sees.
definitely do. But I think it's the other way around. I think they think you look younger than you probably think you look, but
Well,
it just seems to be. Maybe you had kids when you were 7. I don't know.
I had kids
You know.
young, but she's 28, so she's not young. I mean, she's
Okay.
young, but you
Yeah.
know, not crazy young to have kids. So
No,
yeah, I'm just hey man, I'll take it. I'm a young-looking grandpa. I'll take that.
you need it when they're
right.
running around and stuff. I had friends that my daughter babysits for. They just had twins like 3 weeks ago, and it's their second and third. So they had
Oh my
they had
god.
one who's like, I don't know, 20 months or something,
Oh my
and
gosh.
yeah, and then she finds out she's having twins, all boys. So my daughter's in heaven because she loves kids, and she's over there now. She had to
Yeah.
get all cleaned up and everything, and she's helping them, and then they got their hands full. But
That's crazy. Yeah. Twins second and third being twins with all of them that young. Woo.
oh my
Hats off
God,
to
it's
'em.
just like boom, instant family.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard raising 3. I couldn't imagine doing 2 at the same time.
I raised 3 also, and it was hard enough, and they were spaced out,
Yeah.
a little bit. So,
Me
oh
too.
my gosh.
Yeah, and they're never nice enough to like stay on the same schedule.
No,
So
goodbye free time.
right.
Goodbye anything. It's just
I know.
24/7 gonna be
Yeah.
kids. So
Absolutely. So, okay. So let's talk about, well, let's go back a little bit. You tell me about your background and,
okay.
where you grew up and how you got into business and entrepreneurship and some of the
Sure.
businesses. And then we'll work that up to what you're doing now. And we can talk about your new book and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, love it.
Okay.
So I started off in being an entrepreneur, really in business, back in 2008. And the way it came about is I'm in Michigan,
Okay.
born and raised, family, very blue collar, automotive, union mentality, and in my family, getting into a union, having benefits, and paid vacation for a couple weeks a year,
Right.
and kind of working for 30, 40 years in that environment and
That's what you're
retiring, like,
taught, right?
that was I was taught. That
Yeah.
was that's the goal. There is no other goal, and there was nobody in my family or even remotely related to my family who was entrepreneurial.
Right.
So
And they say in the old days, if your dad was a plumber, good chance you're going to be a plumber.
yeah, and honestly, in my family, not only was it encouraged to go work for a factory and be in kind of a union situation, it was almost like you felt like you had to, like you were going to be in trouble as like
Right.
a 16,
Like
17-year-old. Like
Yeah.
I don't do that. I'm going to shame the family, kind of.
Right.
Right.
Now you near Detroit in that area?
Yeah, I grew up about 45 minutes south of Detroit, right on
so
the
that's a
right on the
suburb.
border.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on the border of Michigan and Ohio.
Right. Okay.
Right down there.
Yeah.
And right out of high school, pretty close. I did get a job working for UPS, actually, not a factory, but UPS,
Okay.
a Teamsters union, and
union, the whole deal.
yeah, steady
Benefits,
paycheck.
stock options, the whole thing.
Oh, my dad could not have been happier. Like he was on cloud 9.
Right.
So I worked there. I started when I was 18 or 19, and I worked there until I was about 24. And the reason I left mostly was I hurt my back. Like I was a young 20 something, and I needed to go to the chiropractor 3 days a week just to get out of bed in the mornings.
Wow.
I had really jacked my back.
Were you
up so
driving a
bad.
route? Were you working in the warehouses?
Both. I would load the trucks in the
You're
morning,
loading packages.
and then I would drive them in the afternoon and evening. And I hurt myself loading the trucks because if you ever saw, this is an old reference, but most people have seen it, the episode of I Love Lucy where she's like in the chocolate factory and,
Yeah,
the,
of
and the
course.
chocolate's coming down, right? And she's stuffing them all over.
Matter
That
of
was
fact,
sort
Will
of
and Grace just redid that
yeah,
in their
exactly.
last episode, right?
Yep, you're exactly right. So that was kind of the situation, but it was with 30 to 50 pound boxes on a conveyor belt, and
Yeah.
I was moving them as fast as I could and
Right.
just pop, snap, kabang, and my back is
Yeah, you're
screwed.
young. You probably don't do it right. When we were young, we
No,
just
no, 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 no.
we
I
didn't care. We
wasn't.
didn't bend at the knees.
No.
We just right. I know.
Yep, you're invincible when you're 22.
Yeah, of
Right?
course.
So
Till you're
I
not.
totally I lifted horribly. It was really my fault, but hurt my back anyway. So I had to leave there. I knew I couldn't retire from there. I was basically an invalid at 24 years old. I could barely move. So went into the automotive industry now, right? Went from that into the automotive industry. And I was in there, I was in that industry for a while. And really this is a generalized statement and it's my experience, but the automotive industry is filled with very unhappy people who just don't love their lives. And
It's like that kind of an environment.
Miserable, meat grinder for the soul kind of a situation.
Yeah.
And, I did that for about eight years before a light went off. And I was like, you know what, like, how do I get out of this? Like,
Right.
I should be taking steps to help get myself out of this, or at least have a plan for retirement or something that I'm doing other than just going to work and letting the man.
Now, Mike, when you got injured at UPS and you went on to work in the automotive industry, how did you correct your physical problems that had occurred? Do you need surgery or stuff?
No, I didn't. I continued going to a chiropractor. But honestly, just getting out of that environment. And when I said I went into the automotive industry, I went into a desk job.
Yeah, you weren't working on the line, like lifting large automotive parts. I understand.
No, I stopped doing that kind of physical labor.
White collar more, right?
Yeah, much more white collar. And honestly, I didn't do anything to fix it. I just stopped doing the stuff that was hurting it more.
Just let your body heal.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like, to this day, if you ask me if you said, "Hey, Mike, can you come over? I'm going to move. Can you help me load up the U-Haul?" I would do it, but my back would be screwed the next day.
I have the same problem with the shoulder. Basically it's healed, but if I go and start lifting boxes, I'm going to rip it again. And
Yep. It feels great day to day.
But you don't want to get surgery. That's always the worst. Then you start going downhill from there.
Definitely afraid of surgery.
Yeah.
That could go so poorly.
Yeah.
But in that environment, and I just really started like wondering what can I do for myself to either get out of the situation or at least have a plan for exit.
Right.
And so it just occurred to me, because it's just common sense. I need to invest money. I need to invest in something. And usually when one thinks of investing, their mind goes right to like stocks and the stock market and how do I learn that whole world. So I started trying to figure out how to invest in stocks and the stock market and back then day trading was
right. It was still
a popular thing.
Right.
Yeah.
There were a lot of systems and seminars, right? I remember all those.
Yep. So I would hop on the internet and really go to work trying to figure this out. And I just have a low tolerance for stuff that bores me, and I would get bored, and I couldn't stay focused on stocks and stock market.
Very technical.
Wasn't interested.
It's very hands-on.
It was like reading an insurance manual for me. Right. I just couldn't get into it. But when you do that, eventually, if you search investing long enough, you'll hit real estate investing.
Yeah,
it'll come across your radar. So even back then, it's probably even more popular now. But back then, so I started reading about these folks who were doing real estate investing, and it really interested me. I didn't get bored. I didn't lose focus. I was really, really interested. And I just started reading books, attending seminars, watching webinars, and trying to immerse myself into that world to try to figure out what it was all about.
Well, Mike, I think if you go back, like before the internet, any of those direct response, TV shows where you could get a series and learn about things, they were generally about real estate. I mean, because you didn't have online things to be able to do trading.
Yeah.
It was all about what you can do in your community and flips and buy properties and hold them. It was the rich dad, poor dad era, basically.
If you remember, Carlton Sheets was on.
I remember Carlton Sheets. That was the program. That was the first. Yeah.
100%. That was it.
Carlton Sheets. Is he still around? Is he?
I think he passed away recently.
Did he?
When I say recently, within the last few years.
Or where you're talking, I'll look it up and let's see if he did or not.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I heard he passed away.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. He wasn't young then.
No, he was not young. It was in the late 80s, early 90s when he was really blowing up late night stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I found. And for me, while you're looking that up, I'll tell you, I really was interested, but I'll tell you what happens to a lot of people when they decide they want to change their life. Well, they start reading about it and they get this paralysis analysis.
Mike, I think he's still alive.
Oh, did I kill him inadvertently? I thought he was alive.
No. Yeah.
I thought he had passed.
I don't think so. Doesn't say he passed on Wikipedia. It says when he was born.
When was he born? Let me guess.
Born 1939.
Okay. I would have guessed sometime in the 40s, but okay.
Yeah.
1939. So he's an older guy.
So that makes him what, around 80? Roughly?
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 30 and 80 would have been 19, would be 2019. So
Correct.
yeah.
He's
Okay.
81 almost
81.
maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're not counting
Yeah.
them yet.
So that's what I did. And I actually got a little frozen with analysis, so to speak. And back in the early 2000s, I started kind of getting the bug, but I didn't buy my first house and really start my business until 2008. So there were some years of getting ready to get ready. And
Right.
I had some personal stuff going on in the middle there where it was kind of derailing me. But ultimately, I allowed myself to get bogged down in the learning and not execute, right?
Yeah,
And
like kind of get comfortable. So a
yeah,
little bit too minutia, you think? It was just got to pull the
well,
trigger already?
like with anything that you're about to start, especially when there's risk of, there's monetary risk involved.
Right.
I think people think they don't know enough yet. If I'll learn a
Right.
little bit more, another technique, another
Right.
thing.
I think they're also afraid of like failing, and then their family or their relatives or their friends say, "What are you doing? What are you, stupid? You don't do that stuff." And
Totally. I didn't
yeah,
tell anybody.
feel
I have kind of a
shame.
funny little story I'll tell you about that exact phenomenon.
Good.
So my wife and I decided we're not telling anybody that we're investing in real estate, right?
Right.
Let's wait until we become successful or something that's respectable before we tell anybody. So we did. We started flipping houses, and it was going pretty well. And I had a Facebook business page called Michigan Real Estate, right?
Okay.
So pretty decent URL in Facebook. And this was back in the mid to late 2000s.
This was your business page. It wasn't a
Yeah,
group. It was
correct.
your
It
business
was
page.
my
People could
personal
follow
business
it,
page.
whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And we would
Right.
post stuff on there that we were doing and videos and before and afters. So we got approached. I got a call out of the blue from the Detroit Free Press, which
Right.
is the largest newspaper in Metro Detroit.
Okay.
And they said, "Hey, we're doing an article on real estate investors, and we want to know if we can interview you." And we were like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So they came out to one of the houses we were flipping, and they took a few pictures, interviewed us for a little while, and said, "Okay, thank you very much." My wife and I figured, it's going to be on page 12F of the Sunday page. No one's ever going to. It's going to be buried, right?
Right.
Newspaper comes out, front page, full page color photo
You're kidding.
of my wife and I, right?
You're kidding.
We happened to be at my parents' house that Sunday having dinner, and the phone rings, and my mom picks it up, and she goes, "Oh, hi," talking to my uncle, and she goes, "They're where? For what?" Like, we had not told my parents yet. We ended up on the front page.
And they
of the
didn't
newspaper.
tell you, like, listen, I just want you to know you're going to be on the front page?
No. We assumed it would be buried in obscurity.
I think
So-
that's how, like, Chip and Joanna Gaines got started. Somebody, like, called them, and Joanna's like, "Who is this? Mike, are you playing a joke on us? This isn't real."
Yeah,
And the people came out to interview, and next thing you know, they wanted to do the show, and they didn't think it was real at all.
that's funny.
Yeah, things just kind of happen. Well, I guess newspapers need stories, right? Somebody was doing a thing on real estate, and you said it was '08, so the market had collapsed. Things were coming back. If you had money, there was opportunities, and obviously somebody thought it was important, but didn't really tell you.
And that's how my family found out we were flipping houses. We were featured on the front page of the biggest.
But that's better than them
Yeah.
finding Carlton sheets of stuff in your bedroom and go, "What are you reading this crap for?
Yeah,
what are you, crazy?
exactly.
You're going to try and make it." And you're like,
Yeah.
"No. Look, the whole world thinks we're smart. We know what we're
Yeah,
doing."
exactly. So
Okay.
that was interesting. So that's how we revealed it to our family.
So did that change things? Like, now people knew who you were? Were people calling you? Because nowadays things pop out of the woodwork when you get publicity.
Not on a big scale, but locally, it definitely put us on the map, with some of the local groups and things like that. We became mini celebrities within our own little market. People wanted us to speak at meetups and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of how we did it. And I was still working full time when that article came out. I had not made the switch to full-time entrepreneur. I was kind of
it was a side hustle at that point. Yeah.
Total side hustle, which, by the way, incidentally, did not go over well with the company I worked for either.
Right, that didn't help.
They weren't thrilled by.
They saw the article too.
Yeah, it was interesting. I'll tell you, it really. This isn't funny. This was serious.
Yeah, but there's nothing like. There's no reason why you can't invest in real estate in this. No, it's not like you're sneaking out of work.
No, there isn't. But at that time, 2008, the company I worked for, and I won't name them. It
wasn't. You weren't in automotive anymore.
I was.
Oh, yes, so it's a car company we can't name.
Yeah, I won't name them. It wasn't a great response, but the company was actually fine. But the problem is, back then, at that particular time, there were a lot of layoffs in the automotive industry. I mean, people were getting laid off
because everything was going on in the economy. Yes. Sure.
So what happened was, it wasn't so much the company, but the workers, the people who worked there, started saying, "Hey, he's got this. He's flipping houses, making all this money. He should be the next one to be laid off." Like, that was sort of like,
right. He doesn't need the money.
The townsfolk were coming
Yeah.
out with the pitchforks and
Right.
basically saying, fire him, get rid
Right.
of him.
Don't fire me.
He's got money coming in,
Yeah.
right? So it was really weird, and I had to actually go to HR. And this is, by the way, this is an international company. This isn't a small company.
Right.
I had to go to HR, and luckily the head of HR, who was very cool, a lady, said, I got to tell you, you're fine. Don't worry about your job. I'd love to sit down and talk to you. I think it's great what you're doing, and I'm fascinated. I'm very interested. So luckily, she was sort of a fan of the whole idea.
Right.
Could have went the other way because there were a lot of people who were coming to HR saying, lay him off. He needs to be laid off tomorrow, not me. I have a family and I have no other income, So it was kind of a weird time, but anyways, got through it.
Okay. But that's a great story. Like, because all of a sudden, boom, you're like thrown outside into the sunlight.
Yeah. And there were some haters for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So where'd you go from there? So now you were doing like your first house at that time, or?
We were probably on our fourth or fifth house at that time.
And you were doing a little bit of fix ups and then flipping them, or are you building a portfolio?
We were not building a portfolio back then. We were simply fix and flip. And my wife was involved at that time. She was my business partner, and she handled a lot of the details, going to closings, getting insurance, making sure we have a utilities turnout, all that stuff that I abhor. And I was finding contractors, negotiate them, holding them accountable, and making sure the work's getting done. And we had a good little system. We would do a house, we'd find a house, we'd do a house, we'd find a house.
You weren't going crazy with renovations. No. Like you weren't gutting them to the studs and then you were fixing them up.
We were doing
get your get your money out if you go
paint
too
and
crazy.
Carpet kind of jobs.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward stuff.
Yeah.
Very limited though. Very limited sheetrock. Most of it was just ripping out kitchen cabinets, bathroom cabinets, replacing the flooring,
getting out, selling it.
Exactly. Yeah. A couple of months and we're out. So we were doing that, doing one at a time, and we were kind of going on great. Like I said, we had a little mini celebrity thing going locally, and people knew who we were and kind of thought we were doing really cool stuff. And along about that time, I started to think that everything I touched turned to gold. I could literally do anything, and nothing would go wrong, right? So I was approached by someone.
It's like when life is going to knock you over the head with a 2x4, just when that happens.
When you think nothing can happen.
Yeah, of course.
It was around that time someone approached me with an opportunity to partner with him in something that was not real estate related, but there was a real estate component. They needed to find, I'll tell you what it was. I'm not trying to be secretive, but it was adult foster care facilities. They were putting these together, and it was a gentleman who had an affiliation with some hospitals and some contacts. And he's like, but I need to find houses and get them renovated and make them conform to the regulations and all this.
Right. It sounded like an altruistic thing. So what are adult foster care?
It's adults, seniors who need day-to-day help, but they don't need to be hospitalized necessarily.
Right.
But they can't function on their own. They need help. And
it's like a group home where they're living together and they might have a job and they go back and forth. I understand. Yeah.
Yep, exactly that. So I partnered with him. My responsibility was to find, renovate, and maintain these facilities, and then he would bring in the residents, and he had the relationships and all this. Sounds great. There's definitely opportunity for profit in this. But what happened was I got myself into a situation where I didn't have control over the success or failure of the business model. The revenue was generated all from the healthcare side, right? And I have no interest, but I certainly have no contacts and no experience. So long story short, it won't bore you. It went south. I lost a lot of money. Right. And so I kind of went back to my wife and I'm like, listen, this is what happened. And she's like, that's awful. Okay, here's the deal. This is her talking. We're not going to do anything for 6 months. You need to take a break. All real estate, all entrepreneurship has to go on pause for a minute. I need a chance to regroup mentally.
Did you have a job at that point?
I still had a job at this point. Okay. Yep. And I said, okay, that's fair enough.
Now, before you get to that, can I ask you a question? Yeah. When you say the business failed, did it fail because of something he did that was unscrupulous? Did he take advantage of things? We couldn't get the people?
We couldn't get the people. Okay. So in that business, you do need a nurse on, of course, in-house or on site.
Licensed RN, right?
24/7, yes, 24/7. And if you have, and the house would hold 6 residents, right? That's the regulation.
That's the size of the.
That's the size of it, right? At 6 residents, it's producing good cash flow, significant profits. At 3 residents, it's breaking even, and at 1 resident, it's hemorrhaging money.
Right. So you got to fill this building up.
Got to fill it, and we couldn't fill it. Long story short, so we were hemorrhaging money. So I'm back to my wife, and she's like, 6 months. Let's just take a break. I need a break. Fine. 6 months later, I'm like, all right, here we go. We're getting back in the game, right? And she's like, you know what? You get back in the game. I'm a teacher. I'm a middle school science teacher. I don't really want to have to be on this roller coaster ride. However, I trust you. I believe in you. I know you're going to be
The good
super
wife.
successful. Yeah. Just do what you got to do, and don't involve me in the day-to-day drama, because it's too much for me to have to think about all the time.
You guys still married?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you married your second wife first, so that was a good move.
I married my second wife second. I said I had some personal stuff. That was
Oh,
part of
this is the
personal
second
stuff.
marriage?
This is the second marriage.
No
Yeah.
kids from your first marriage?
2. Yeah.
Oh,
Two
okay.
kids.
So you got,
Yep.
yeah. Okay.
Yep. And they were, at this time, they were 16, 13.
Okay, teenagers, sure.
Teenagers, which has its own little.
Yeah, I
set
got
of
2 of
problems.
those, 14 and
Yeah.
16.
14 and 16. So you're right
Yeah.
in the heart of it.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
exactly what I'm talking
My
about.
oldest boy, he's 19, but the girls are 14 and 16, yeah.
So 6 months later, she's like I said, good, love you, good luck, you're awesome. Just don't stress me out with this. So that was like, she was sort of the governor to my race car when we were investing, because I was always like, let's go get more houses, let's buy more, let's put in offers, let's
Right.
ramp this up. And she was the one who was going, calm down, like, let's just get this one done.
The voice of reason.
Voice of reason, slow and
Yeah.
steady wins a race. But that being said, once the governor was pulled off, and I had this race car out of the garage, like, it did take off. Like, I started flipping 2 and 3 houses at a time, not just one.
Yeah.
And which is what led me ultimately to being able to leave my job. And you know, she's conservative, and that's great. It's good to have that balance. So the compromise was, the reason I was able, or the way that I was able to leave my day job, which I made pretty good money. I was, white collar, mid-level management at international automotive company. I said, listen, if I can save 1 year's salary in cash, put it in the bank, worst case scenario, 8 months from now, I'll go back out into the job market and I'll find a job. At that time, the jobs were actually, it was good. It was a good market.
Right.
It'll give me 4 months to find a job, and no harm, right? We'll just,
so you make her feel comfortable.
yeah, I'll try it out. So I did that. I put the year's salary away. And
Now, Mike, since I'm from New Jersey, I don't know the economics of real estate out there, and I don't want to get into your personal situation, but on a deal, so if you flipped a house, what was the kind of profit on average you would pull out of a deal? Was it 10 grand? Was it 100 grand?
Yeah, no, a very middle of the road, reasonable base hit would be $15,000 to $20,000.
Okay, yeah. So they're smaller homes, and the prices obviously are lower because you're in Michigan.
Yeah,
than you are back here. Okay,
back
good.
then I was buying houses for $45,000, putting 20 into it, selling it for 115. Whatever, 110.
Right. So if you want to make $150,000 a year in income, you got to be doing 10 deals that succeed a year at least.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
Right.
Yeah, 8 to 10, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So
not undoable, but I just want to understand the economics of it. Okay.
yeah, definitely not undoable. And like I said, I started ramping up and doing 2 or 3 at a time. So it was going great. It was going really, really well.
So what's the life cycle of a flip when you close on the property, and how soon can you sell it? Take you 60 days or more?
If things go well, you close the day you close, you should be closing on the other end and getting paid 4 to 5 months later.
Oh, that long. Okay.
Yeah, approximately.
So you want things in the pipeline all the time so they start coming out?
Yeah, usually, and a lot of times, this is kind of getting into the weeds, but there's a FHA requirement as a seasoning requirement. It's a 90-day seasoning requirement.
Right, I know.
Technically, you
can't.
you can't sell for 90 days. So that would hold me up. If that wasn't the case, I would say when I close, I'd probably be selling it 2 to 3 months later if I didn't have. But we sometimes you get a little bit delayed too with some of the construction stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, 4 or 5 months.
You couldn't even list the property for 90 days?
No, you can list it.
You could list it, just couldn't close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. So little hurdles, but honestly, you go through cycles too. In Michigan, we have 4 seasons, and in the wintertime, things slow down. It gets a little tougher. In the spring and summer, things go a little faster. So I'd probably average 4 months. Some months would be 3, some months would be 6. Just depending on the time of year.
Okay. All right. So I understand. All right. So here we are.
So here we are. That got me up to quitting my job, full-time entrepreneur, flipping houses. Life is great. My business has changed a little bit since then. Went through a little period, and listen, man, this is just like moving with the cheese a little bit and understanding where your strengths are. So I had a scenario where I bought a house. I relied heavily on a realtor to help me find houses and then ultimately value them, so I know what I could sell them for, so I could run my
Okay.
numbers. And my realtor was great for a while, and then we ran across this house, and they gave me the value, and I put the work into it and borrowed the money and all this. And during the project, the contractor that I had used on probably 10 houses before this,
Okay.
very reliable, good contractor, just really started kind of flaking out on me, not showing up on the job site, overcharging me for things, trying to slip things in that weren't done, just really kind of crazy, underhanded stuff.
Right.
He
Like he's
might have
having
had something.
financial problems other places, right? And he's trying to,
Probably,
yeah. That's what
yeah. He
happens with a
had
lot of
some
these
stuff.
guys.
It totally happens all the time
Yeah.
with contractors,
Right.
unfortunately. It's part of the game. My realtor, though, at the same time on the same job, really missed the number when it came to the resale number. So I was faced with having to find a new contractor, and the realtor I'd kind of lost confidence in because he really, really missed it bad on this one. And I didn't lose money on the deal, because in real estate, when you're flipping, that's why I always shoot for $20,000 to $30,000 profit margin, because when
Right.
things go really, really bad,
Yeah. You
if
have a
you make
cushion.
5,000, it's
You're
better than
fine.
losing, right?
You get out
So
unscathed,
you
and
get out
yeah.
unscathed, right?
Right.
So that's kind of what happened. But I had to find some new people for my team, but the opportunities were still coming. I was still finding deals and finding houses that made sense to flip. So while I was in this period of, I don't have a contractor, I don't have a realtor, I'm not really equipped to do this thing, had an opportunity to come across my desk for a house. I know all the flippers in my area, and so I just called one and said, "Listen, I've got this deal. I can't do it." I told him the whole story about the contractor and everything, and said, I can't perform on this fast enough. Are you interested in this property? Would you want to buy it and just do it yourself and just kind of pay me something for it?" And he's like, "Yeah, what do you want for it?" Well, I had agreed to a price with the homeowner of 95,000. He was willing to pay 110,000 for the deal. And so I ended up flipping the deal to him, letting him do it. I got paid 15,000, which I told you was kind of a base hit type number when you're
Right.
flipping anyway. And I did that deal, and it was just like, wow, that was the fastest, easiest thing I've ever done in my
Now,
life.
Mike, they call that wholesaling, right?
Yeah, they
When you
call it wholesaling.
basically
Correct.
selling the contract is what you're doing, kind of.
You're just
You're
selling the contract.
not taking possession of anything.
Nope, never take possession of it.
Okay.
Nope.
Yeah.
So I did that, loved it, felt good. And at this point, by the way, I had been flipping for 6 years. I had sort of had it up to my eyeballs with contractors, appraisers, mortgage companies, realtors, and I sort of cleared the deck of all of those different people and was dealing just directly with an investor who was they're very, usually very black and white. There's not a lot of drama. It's just, tell me the numbers. Let me go look at the house. Yes or no. It's just that simple, right? So I did it, and it was great. Not too long afterward, like days later, I got another opportunity, almost identical house, almost identical area. It was just a carbon copy of the first one. Called the same guy and said, "Hey, listen, you're not going to believe this. I got another one. It's very similar to the last one. I bought it for the same amount." I didn't say that on the conversation initially, but I said, would you pay the same amount, like 110,000 for this house? And he said, "Let me look at it." Sent it to him. 10 minutes later, he's like, "I'll take that one too." So
And you were already in contract on the.
I was already in contract.
Okay.
Yes. So a wholesaler was born, to say the least.
Right.
I was really, really happy with that model. I'm really impatient, and that kind of velocity, that kind of turnover and turnaround is really exciting for me. So I sort of switched my model. I still flipped houses here and there strategically, but I flipped my model to wholesaling and kind of did that. And around that time too, I started taking on, because I was getting, when you're a wholesaler in real estate, typically you need more deals to fuel the machine.
Right, because the margins are smaller.
The
You're
margins
not
are
fixing
smaller.
them up. You're not getting any sweat equity.
Exactly. So I started doing a lot of advertising and marketing to try to find, homeowners that were in a situation where they wanted to sell for cash. And so I was getting more opportunities, and some of these opportunities that are coming along were great for rentals. And some of the people that I knew, who, even people who had rentals, in Michigan, there's good and bad, right? Our house prices are low. The profits might be a little lower than they would be in New York or California. But one thing that we do have is we have cash flowing rentals that have ROI, very, very pedestrian, 13 to 15% ROI. It's not unusual. It's not even all that exciting
for
people here. So I was finding opportunities for rentals that would be 12, 13% ROI, and my
Can't get
investors
that anywhere.
turning their nose up at it. I couldn't
Yeah.
sell it locally. So I'm like, this is asinine.
You're
I'll buy
kidding.
the house for that.
Right.
You know? So I started putting together my own capital and buying rentals from the opportunities that were coming across my desk anyway as part of my
Mike,
business.
does the 12, 13% is that a cash on cash number? Meaning it doesn't account for appreciation of the property or anything like that?
Correct.
I mean, so your total return could be in the 20s.
It's
Who wouldn't do that? Yeah, that's
absolutely.
funny.
And really to be quite like specific, I was marketing these houses where my investors could get like 12, 13, 14%. But if I took that markup away and I bought it myself, right, I'm actually getting 15% because I'm not marking it up to myself, right?
Yeah.
So these are cash flowing great. So I started putting together a portfolio, and years now I have like 20 that I'm putting, and I really haven't actively been buying.
And what are they, 1 or 2 family houses, or
they're single family homes?
They're all single family homes.
Yep.
Okay.
And also, again, in Michigan, we have a nice little cross section of opportunities. We have some houses that you can buy that will cash flow quite nicely, but they're probably not going to appreciate that much. They're in probably C-level neighborhoods.
That's common, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's other houses that'll cash flow at 10 to 12%, and they will appreciate because they're in a little nicer neighborhoods.
Of course.
B plus, B minus type neighborhoods. So I started doing that. So now it's kind of a 3-pronged attack. I wholesale, I flip, and I've got a rental portfolio that I'm building.
So you have guys that go and plumb out the toilets in the middle of the night and all that stuff to take care of that stuff.
Yeah. So when it comes to rentals, I hire a management company. So I have a property management company.
Right. It's hard to do if you have 2, but when you have 20, the economics make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, to do that. Do you ever have any problems with, I don't know what the eviction rules are out there, but you got to evict people and you got to get a lawyer, or does the management company handle all that stuff?
Management company handles it. I did have an interesting one though recently. Actually, this was last fall. House, they stopped paying rent.
Right.
And this one was not being managed by the rental company because it was the first one I ever bought. The lady was already there. She had been there for 5 years, older lady. Like it was just clock. There was nothing to do. So I just thought, I'll let her send the payments directly to me, and I won't even bother with the management company. I won't pay them to do nothing. So, and I thought if the house ever goes vacant, I'll bring them in. They can fill it and they'll manage it, right? So the lady stopped paying rent to me, and I'm busy, and it just sort of slipped through the cracks for like 3 months. I totally missed that the rent wasn't coming in.
Right.
And when I finally got involved, I had my assistant, reach out. They don't answer the phone. She went there and knocked on the door. Nobody answers the door. So we're like, we had to send an eviction notice, right? 7-day notice. They have to pay her or they go through the process. And nothing, right? They didn't respond to that. They didn't show up the court date. Anyways, long story short, come to find out, because we're putting things on their door now, right?
Yeah. Is that what you
Somebody
have to
from
do
this
in
lady's,
Michigan? Okay.
Yeah. Somebody from their family calls and says, listen, our mother passed away.
That was her?
That was her. Yeah.
Okay.
She had passed away. That's why she's not paying rent.
Yeah, there you go.
We didn't know, right?
Right.
So, and they're like, well, she passed away. We need some time. And I'm like, listen, you got to move her stuff. Like, we got to get the stuff out. It's now we're at like 6 months now where this thing is just sitting.
Doesn't that break the lease? Meaning you got 30 days, you can store her stuff, but you can take possession of the property because she's died?
Yes, I can. And I was trying to be sensitive and not just, do what I could do by the letter of the law. I was trying to be a little bit sensitive to it. So that was interesting. They did end up clearing it out. And I'll tell you that the way she was living, it was bad. I had never seen a house in worse condition on the inside. And shame on me because it wasn't being managed by the property management company. Right. I wasn't going in there every 30 or 40 days.
Yeah, they would have checked on it, right?
They would have checked on it. This house was a disaster. So now I'm flipping it, actually. I'm putting, luckily I bought it so long ago that the appreciation, even in this neighborhood, which isn't the best, it's more than doubled in price. So I'm just flipping it, just putting some work into it and going to sell it.
It's funny. I used to represent 2 guys who used to do a lot of, not necessarily wholesaling, but they would do fix-ups and flips. And sometimes people were, getting foreclosed on or whatever. And there was some equity left in the home, and they would give cash for keys. Say, listen, well, you can stay for 6 months, but then we got to fix the house up. So here's 10 grand. We'll move you and this and that. So there was one guy, I remember, he was much older and he needed money. And so they said, listen, you can stay here for the rest of your life. He was old. I mean, he was in his 80s. But if you leave before you die, if you vacate the property, we'll give you whatever it was, $5,000, $10,000. So he passes away. So I get a call from another lawyer who represents the ex-wife. I don't know if they were actually divorced, but they were separated. And once, so he says, I just, can you send my client the $5,000? And I go, for what? Well, he vacated the property. I said, I don't think the definition of vacating the property means dragging his dead body out of the building.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, my clients ended up paying like $3,000. It just wasn't worth it to go to court and try and fight this thing. They would have been paying me more money. And we paid him some money. The guy was a nice guy. So but we didn't like her, but we felt like he'd be rolling over in his grave. But it's funny people's interpretation of vacating the building.
I know. It's so crazy. I know. We've had so many crazy stories. I had one property that I rent. This was a few years back. I got a call. I used to live in the house, so it became a rental of mine because when I went to leave, it really hadn't appreciated that much, and I thought I'd rather just keep it as a rental than sell it.
This is a different house. This is the one that the lady died.
Different house. But I knew the neighbor. I was good friends with the neighbor because I'd lived there for about 5 years. And he calls me one night. He goes, I don't know how to tell you this, but there is a knife fight happening in your front yard right now.
God.
So the parents had gone away on vacation for like a long weekend, and the kids, teenagers, were going to have a party.
There you go.
Things got out of control, and they were, next thing you know, there's two kids in the front yard with knives, like going to stab each other. And the police got called. And
I sure hope the neighbors called the police before they called you. I mean,
that's a great question. I don't know what happened first. I just know the police ended up there.
Like, what do you want me to do about it?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. I know. I was like, thanks a lot for stressing me out. So that happened, and luckily no one was seriously hurt. I think a kid got a little nick. He had to go get some stitches, but just weird stuff. When you have rentals, man, there could be some weird. This is specifically why I didn't have that with the rental with the management company either. So that's why the management company has all my properties, and I don't even want to. I don't want to know unless I need to do something, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and in the real estate business is funny. Got to make sure you have insurance because the guy who gets stabbed could sue you.
Yeah.
And you're like, what do I have to do with this? Well, he's your tenant, and next thing you know, you're trying to settle and giving him money because they're going looking for money.
Yep.
It's crazy. So you built a portfolio. So this was about, at what point, what year were we when you had all three of these things really going on? Is this to date, or this is a little ways back?
I mean, it's to date. I'm still wholesaling, flipping, and buying rentals. Rental buying has slowed down a little bit.
Right.
Prices are going up, obviously. Once they go up to a point, it doesn't make as much sense. But I started so the year that I switched my model, and that's kind of when everything started ramping up too. That's when it really hockey sticked. That was like 2015.
That's when the wholesaling started.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's when the wholesaling.
And then at what point was it just because people knew you that you started doing the coaching, the mentoring? Now you're writing a book,
Yeah. So what happened was I became friendly with someone in California. I have a podcast.
Right. That's true.
And the guy who mentored me or kind of coached me when I was starting my podcast to help me start was a guy named John Lee Dumas. He's humongous in podcasting, but he's more of like, he interviews entrepreneurs and stuff, but he's been around for a long time. Anyways, he mentored me, and he said, hey, I've got this guy in California that is also a house flipper. I think you guys would get along. I should put you together. And he did, and I got to know this guy, and he was flipping 100 houses a year in California, which sounds like BS.
I guess it depends on the market you're in, right?
Yeah. He had just really had his systems and processes dialed in, and he was just crushing it. So I got to know him a little bit, kind of really got to understand what he was doing, and I knew that he was legitimately doing that. It wasn't a marketing number, it was an actual number.
Right.
And he said, I'm going to start a mastermind. If you're interested in being in it, I'd love to have you in it. It's going to be for high level investing, and we're going to share all these concepts and things. So he started doing that.
Mastermind's basically a high level study group, right?
It's a high level study group, but the way I like to think of it is it's a study group, but it's also like you're bringing all these scientists together who have their own laboratories, and we all go our separate ways. We do experiments in our laboratories, and we come back and we share the results, what works and what doesn't, and it really helps accelerate the learning a little bit. And it also
but you're paying to join the group, right? It's a
yes. Yeah. This is an extremely expensive yearly buy-in,
right?
But you're going to surround yourself with people that are extremely high level production. So did that. Loved it. That actually had a significant role in my business really exploding. And at some point I said, listen, we have this group, and it's a group where the person that you're trying to attract into this group is at a certain level. there are
Yeah.
people that are below that level who need some kind of help too. What if we had a slightly lower option for people to buy into and be a part of that would be helpful? And I'd like to run that, and I'd like to be a part of it. So I kind of inserted myself with some thoughts of how I could add to the value of this group.
Got it.
And just started coaching and doing that mentoring on that level, and then speaking soon followed. And there's some events that are put on by this mastermind. It's called Seven Figure Flipping is the name of the mastermind, but there's an event every year called Flip Hacking Live, and it's a 3-day event. It's in San Diego usually. This year it's in Orlando, but if we have it at all, right? I mean, but
it'll just
so
be
I
a break. It won't be a termination.
Exactly. So I started speaking on stage there, and then, I had some cool things happen. I'm a fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, who's a marketing guy.
Yep, he's from
my area. Okay. Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, the wine library.
He's huge. Yeah. So I reached out to him through direct message a couple of years ago, and said, hey, I was trying to get him on my podcast.
I'm sure.
And he didn't respond to me, but a couple days later, his team, Gary,
he's got a big media company now,
Vayner
right?
Media, reached out to me and said, we're having an event in Miami. It's called Agent 2021. And we have a bunch of different kinds of agents, real estate agents, insurance agents, all these different agents. And we're going to put on this event for a couple days, and we'd like you to speak. And I was like, there's no way in the world they reached out to me through anything else other than the fact that I reached out to Gary directly. And I'm sure he was like, who's this guy? He wants me on his podcast.
Maybe he'll be right.
He looked me up and then probably said, hey, I'm going to whatever. So I got to speak at his event, which was really, really cool. Really well-run event. So that sort of like launched where my whole speaking side of what I do.
Okay, good. So, so you still got your real estate. You're still doing that, right?
Yep.
And you're doing the coaching and the mastermind group and all that type of stuff, which is good stuff. And then how did the book come about?
So the book came about when I started the mastermind back it was January of 2016. It's the first time we all met. It was the first time that started. And the guy who ran it, his name's Justin Williams, California. It's the guy that I had become friendly with.
Okay.
He was running it. And he's like, listen, I'm going to have a contest. And there was about 20 businesses that were involved in this mastermind. He said, the first person to take their business to 7 figures in gross profit, I'm going to send you to Hawaii. You and your wife.
This is the
first meeting. Yeah. Okay. He's like, here's the deal. He's a very off the cuff, spontaneous guy. He did not plan it. Trust me.
Right. He just thought of it. I'm going to do
thought of it. There was a lot of good energy and everyone's excited. He's like, okay, I'm going to send you to Hawaii if you get So I call my wife after we leave there. I'm like, listen, here's what was said. And she's like, oh, we're going to Hawaii. We're going to do this. So we buckled down.
The hell with all the conservative stuff. We got to blow this one out, right?
Exactly. So at the time I was probably on about a $300,000 pace at that point, right?
But you weren't halfway there.
I wasn't halfway there. And they made this arrangement. So during the year 2016, I ramped up from a $200,000 to $300,000 company to I went over $1 million in gross profits in one. So there was a real hockey stick there. And so since then, when I'm on stage, a lot of times that will be referenced like, hey, this is this guy who joined our group. He's one of the first people. And it's a marketing thing a little bit, but it's true. I mean, I did it. So people will come to me and say, oh, okay, I have a business. I'm a one-person band right now. I really want to ramp it up. What did you do? Like, how did you go from a couple of deals a month to 10 to 12 deals a month? Like, what were the steps? And I've retold this 100 times, probably 1,000 times. Right. And so at one point I'm like, I should just write a book. Like I should put it in a book. Enough people want to know. It's an interesting story. And it's good stuff. It's good, relatable business advice. It's not just real estate related. The anecdotes in the book are real estate because that's what I do, but
it can be applied to most businesses.
Yeah. The concepts are very universal. So that's why I wrote the book. I called it Level Jumping because the way I looked at it, having this information, and by the way, this is all, I didn't invent any of this. It was all stuff that I learned from other folks that were doing things at a much higher level than me, who I said to them, what did you do to get there? And one guy in particular, his name's Andy McFarland. He was about he was probably about 5 years ahead of me. So in other words, when I joined the group 5 years earlier, he was where I was in my business. And I said, how did you get to where you are now over the 5 years, what did you do? Like, what did you implement? How did you do it? And what mistakes did you make? What should I not do? And he kind of laid it out for me. And I said, well, if you did it in 5 years, but you had to figure it out the whole time and make mistakes, 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of a thing. What if I never had to take that step back, or at least not the steps that you took back? I could avoid all those. And like I said earlier, I'm very impatient. What if I could compress everything you did and compress it into a year? Could that happen? And that's exactly what I did. So that's what people ask. That's the book. I call it level jumping because I really feel like I jumped levels. I went from where I was, and I didn't go to the next level because that's just normal progression. I sort of jumped levels because I had people to lean on who had been there before me that could kind of help point out the potholes so I didn't hit them.
Right, you had a free trip to Hawaii, and your wife was going to kill you if you didn't figure a way to get there. So
exactly,
necessity is the mother of invention.
Exactly. So yeah, once I had, she never holds me back, but she was like, sometimes she's extra motivation like that. If she knows or something like that, it'll be like, hey, I see you're watching TV. Like, what else could you be doing? And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I'm actually wasting time right now. So it's always good to have someone kind of holding you accountable. Well,
do you think the carrot at the end of the stick kind of drove you to expand and push yourself beyond what you would have done if you just, sat around? Or do you think you would have figured it out at some point and said, how can I, triple this business, quadruple this business? That's basically what
I would have figured, especially being part of the mastermind, I would have figured it out. I probably wouldn't have done it as soon. But to be honest with you, the funny part of it is I didn't really care about the Hawaii thing. It was the competition that drove me, wanting to be the first person across the finish line. That was way more fuel for me than Hawaii.
Right. The ego that was driving you to be.
It was purely ego that made me do it.
That's not bad.
The trip was just incidental. It was great. It was a lot of fun, but honestly, having the bragging rights of doing it first was way more important to me.
Yeah, that's all good ego. I mean, there's bad ego that like hurts other people, and there's good ego that pushes you to heights that you probably wouldn't reach, right?
Yeah, and there was a lot of trash talking in this group. We became a pretty close knit group, and a lot of back and forth trash talking about who was going to get there. So that kind of
still friends with all the guys. They're still involved in the group?
Still friends with them. Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of the guys in the group, interesting story. One of the guys in the group. So this group was high level, and it was the buy-in was really the barrier to entry. It was not trying to be secretive about it. It was
but that's the way these things work. Yeah.
It was a high level, but
25 grand,
25,000. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that keeps out the window shoppers. That's for sure. Yeah.
Now, what we did have, and we didn't realize it at the time, was there was a guy who was in there who probably had no business being there based off of his experience. He could just write the check and
he had
in. He'd only really done like 1 or 2 deals ever.
Okay.
But he got in there, and as it turns out, the guy is phenomenally smart, phenomenally talented, phenomenally driven. Fast forward now the group isn't 20 people. Now the group is 150 people today.
Right.
He owns it. The guy who started it, Justin, eventually sold the group to him. Now the guy who had no business being there, he owns the group, and he's far and away has the biggest, most successful company in the entire group. Far, not even close.
Now all these guys aren't real estate guys, are they?
Yeah, all real estate.
Oh, they're all real estate guys.
All real estate. Yep. In that group, it's all real estate. Yep. So a good success story. Guy who owns a company now was probably had no business being there, but.
Isn't that the way it works a lot of times, though? Right?
He's just a smart guy. I mean, he's just the
guys that are smart and the guys that are driven, the guys that are gorillas. I don't care what business they're in. It's the relentless people that it doesn't happen. It's never easy for anybody.
Right.
Right? It's just some people are more driven to do it, and other people's are more overwhelmed in doing it. It's I don't think there was something I read years ago, and I think it was a speech from like the 1930s where the person basically said that successful people do the things that unsuccessful people are unwilling to do. It's not that they can't do it.
Yeah.
They just don't have that drive. They don't have that fire in their belly. They haven't suffered hardship. I don't know, whatever it is that drives a particular person. They haven't experienced it. Like you said, they're going like a lot of your relatives, old ancestors, they went to work and they didn't know any better. And they weren't the kind of person that said, I want more, or what else can I do? Or I don't want to do this for the rest of my life.
Nope.
One of the reasons I ended up in law out of fairness to myself, but honestly, is that I kind of just followed everything that I was told to do, go to college. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do after college. So my grandmother's like, go to law school. May she rest in peace.
Yeah.
Okay. And here I am. Then I got involved and interested in entrepreneurship. But I'm 53 years old, so I am a business attorney. I'm not going to break out and get involved in other things. I owned real estate for a while. We owned some multifamily homes and made some
Okay.
money doing it and so forth. But, I'm building my entrepreneurial side that way, helping
Yeah.
people kind of hopefully make less mistakes. They need to make mistakes because I think they don't
Yeah.
learn
Yeah.
if they don't make some mistakes. Right? Everything goes
Yeah.
real well. As soon as you're out of the picture and something clobbers them over the head, they're not going to know
Yep.
what to do. So
Yep.
what stage is the book at? Is it out or is it in
So the book Level
development?
Jumping will be out on June 1st. So I don't know
Okay.
when this is going to air exactly, but it'll be out on June 1st. So you can
This will
search
probably be
for it on
coming out
Amazon.
like in July sometime.
Oh, perfect. So the
you'll
book's
have
out.
time.
It's there.
Okay,
It's on
good.
Amazon. Look for Level Jumping.
Okay.
There's no other book called that, I'm positive, because
Yeah.
nobody knows what it is until I explain it. But yeah.
maybe we can get I can get 5 copies from you.
Yeah.
And then we can figure out a way to motivate people to get them or
100%.
give them
100%.
away or based on something.
Done. I'll send you
don't
5
know.
copies. Done.
Okay. Well, I'll buy them, but if you get it, great. If you want to give them to me, even better. Maybe we can
See
somehow
that?
raise some
I'm
money
not a
for
sales
some
guy.
charity or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. I'll give them to you. I'll send them to you for free.
Okay.
I have no problem. Yeah, let's think of some cool way to get people involved, and maybe it'll excite other people to go and get it.
So have you've coached people that are not necessarily in the real estate business too since your whole involvement, or is it really centers around real estate?
It's mostly around real estate, but I have not formally coached. I guess it would be more like a mentorship. But
Right.
that's something that I'm very interested in because it's sort of like, great comedians sometimes have a hard time getting dramatic roles. I've been in real estate, and my
see
goal,
if you can do it.
part of my goal with this book, is
Sure.
like I know that I can help people with the things that I did to take my business from where it was to where it is. I know it applies to other businesses, so
Right.
I'm very excited to go out and meet other people in other industries and get those opportunities to present what I did to other people to see if they're interested in being mentored or coached.
Right. So have you come across any interesting businesses that you've met people that do or not yet?
Outside of real estate?
Yeah.
No, not too many. Honestly, it's been, like I said, it's been informal. A lot of like email back and forth, kind of give them advice. Nothing super in depth, but that's the direction I'm going for sure.
And what's the plan with the book? Like, you have a publicist going to get you speaking engagements. I mean, obviously you're going on podcasts, so that helps. And what's the name of your podcast, Mike?
Just Start Real Estate.
Okay, fine. So we'll put a link to that in the
cool. Thank you.
in the show notes, and get your listeners to me and my listeners to you, hopefully. And
yeah, totally.
Some things, yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So the goal with the book, really, to be honest with you, is it's getting out of my brain and off my chest everything that people ask me all the time, so I can direct them to that resource. But also, I'm sure you know this. There are opportunities that are out there for speaking where having a book. It certainly makes the path easier.
It's like
so
having a podcast.
That was part
it's
of
like
it.
being a guest on a podcast, writing an article.
Yep.
It definitely raises your level of credibility.
Yep. And that's the goal. If I don't become a millionaire off the book, that's fine. I want to get the book in as many people's hands as I can so that I can raise that awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think in overall, books aren't huge money makers.
No,
as more as they are tools for you to share your ideas and to help people. And but that will lead to coaching and speaking and and probably other real estate opportunities, and people know you and they bring you deals. I mean, that's the way it all kind of comes together.
Totally. Yep.
All right, good. So so that'll be coming out. I'm sure that'll be out by this time this is out.
Yes.
And I think I have most of your links, but we'll put it all in the show notes. I'm going to stop the recording.